Explain the format of what we're going to do, because if you're a regular visitor to the annual meeting, it functions just a little bit differently than a regular school board meeting, and I'll explain that, and then we'll go through our agenda, and once we complete the annual meeting, we will have a regular school board meeting following that. So I'll explain all that as we get going. So I will call to order the annual meeting of the Milton School District on August 26th. And first item that I will take care of is our Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would join me, our flag is in the front. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, as this is a meeting of the electorate, we will elect a meeting chairperson, and following that person will walk us through the agenda and so forth. So having said that, nominations are open for chair of the annual meeting.
Would move that Joe Martin be the chair of tonight's meeting.
Okay. So that motion is Dave Holterman, seconded by Tom Westrick, that I chair the annual meeting. Are there other nominations? And third and final call. So as there is only one nominee, it is appropriate to cast a unanimous ballot for myself, that's Joe Martin, to chair the annual meeting. Questions or objections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, and I will do my level best. So having said that, we have an agenda that if you've taken time to look at it, we need to approve it as you see it.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Thank you. That was Rick's motion, seconded by Annette, to approve our agenda. Questions on it? Otherwise, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That clearly passes. So our agenda is set. It does bear mentioning that one of the differences for this annual meeting is that as you see agenda items on the screen up here, we do have some tasks to accomplish that take motions and etc. Those motions are perfectly eligible to come from the floor and or the folks in the front. You do not necessarily have to be made by a board member. That's one of the differences of an annual meeting, and I'll explain some of the other ones as we get rolling. Having said that, our agenda, if you can see it up there on the left side of our screen, we're going to have a district overview. Our superintendent, Rich Dahman, is going to walk us through that. And we will follow that with a district financial report from Ross McPherson, who is our Director of Business Services. And then we have a budget presentation that we will present to you folks, and Ross will also lead us through that. And then we have three statutory obligations, if you will, that the annual meeting needs to accomplish. That is to levy a school tax for the ensuing year. That motion will appear on the screen at the appropriate time. That motion can come from the floor or from anyone in the front of the room. The second item of business, that's actually letter E on the agenda, is to fix the salaries of the board members and authorize expenses. And then the final one is to motion to allow the Board of Education to establish the date and time for the 2025 annual meeting. And then once we walk through all of those things, that is the agenda for the annual meeting, and like I said, we'll follow that with a regular school board meeting. So, having said that, I will turn it over to Rich Dahman, our superintendent, who will give us a little 30,000-foot view of the Milton School District.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I think it's important that we start our annual meeting with kind of an overview of the school district. The first couple slides are just the annual meeting agenda. So if we go to slide 6, here's the first slide that has some new information. And I want to walk through currently our population of our school district, and you can see the outline, our district map there is just shy of 19,000 people living within the boundaries of our school district. There's 7,158 households and about 120 square miles of area. As of 2023, our equalized tax base is listed there, a little bit over $3 billion. We have 9 municipalities, mainly in Rock County, but also a portion of Jefferson County. And our enrollment over the last few years, and our enrollment has been extremely stable over the last few years, of approximately 3,400 students in K-12. Our enrollment for this coming school year will be finalized with that third Friday count in September, but we'll bring the board an update at the first board meeting in September on what enrollment is looking like. There's always some ins and outs this time of year with students, but as soon as we get the school year rolling, we'll bring that to the board. On the next slide, we want to highlight some of the great things that are happening across our school district. Our Opportunities, Achievement, and Community for All is our school district's vision. And as you can see there, we have a lot of great student achievement, the highest AP and ACT scores in Rock County, the highest Wisconsin Forward achievement in Rock County for the last 3 years. Our Wisconsin Report Card score has improved every year since 2019-20, which is when they changed the scoring system. And every year since then, our scores have continued to go up. Because of all the great things that we do, we are rated the #1 school district in Rock County. So it's something that our students, staff, and families should be very proud of. And when we ask our parents and community members if they're proud to be a Red Hawk in their families, we get overwhelming response saying that people agree with that. 88% of our parents, versus only 4% that disagree, said that they were proud to be Red Hawks. And our community members, which oftentimes don't have a direct connection to the school, like our parents do, 77% agreed that they're proud to be Red Hawks, and only 10% disagreed. So it's something that we're really proud of, and we provide a great opportunity for our community members. We balance that high achievement and opportunity for students with being good fiscal stewards. Our mill rate is the tax rate for the folks in our community has dropped almost 28% over the last 5 years. So we really live our vision that we combine that opportunity, achievement, and community extremely well. I spoke earlier about the 9 municipalities that make up our school district. This is a listing of those 9 municipalities. You can see the different percent of our overall property value, and by far the largest property value in our district is in the city of Janesville, followed up by the city of Milton. And then you can see the townships of Harmony, Milton, Janesville, Fulton, Johnstown, Hashkanon, and Lima, and what portion of the property value of our school district are found in each of those municipalities. But when we talk about community as part of our strategic plan, we know that we represent a lot of different communities, and all of our communities are important in the work that we do. A couple other things that I want to share when the board and the committee or the community were at the meeting today determine the levy for the following year or for this coming year. It's going to impact our mill rate. Excuse me. But our mill rate history, you can see there over the last 10 years in the blue, that 10-year average has been $8.44. We're projecting that for the coming year, that will be down to $6.70. And we know that we'll have that finalized within the next couple weeks. On the next slide is just a review of our strategic plan. It includes our vision and mission statements. We have 5 pillars or strategic objectives that are important to us as a school district, and the goals and focus areas in each of those different pillars. So the strategic plan really guides our work in all of our departments and in all of our schools. And then I want to close just with some highlights from the past school year. On that first picture slide, you can see some students across all of our different schools taking part in some fun activities. On the next slide, we have some more school activities, both in the classroom and outdoors. We have Milton East visiting City Hall on Election Day, is always an exciting time, and celebrating Veterans Day, and joining in different parades that we have throughout the school year. On slide number 13, some of our other highlights during the year, you can see some presentations that we have, some students viewing a once-in-a-generation eclipse, high school students reading to West students during lunch, which demonstrates our strong partnerships between schools, We have monthly assemblies to celebrate the great things that are happening in all of our schools. And then on the next slide, some performances, whether it's dance recitals, music performances, our school plays, talent shows, unity track meet are all exciting opportunities for our students outside of the classroom. On the last slide, it celebrates some of our athletic achievements from the last year. We had a large number of state participants and state champions that are highlighted on that last slide. So a lot of incredible things happening across all of our schools academically and in extracurriculars with our students and our staff. So I wanted to kick the ball off by highlighting some of those things.
Excellent. Anybody who have questions for Rich? It's always fun to look back at some of the real highlights from our district, and there are many.
I have one question. So on the municipality slide, slide 8, you show the property value. Would you say the population breaks up the same way, or would you know? Out of curiosity.
I wouldn't say totally breaks up the same way. It's fairly similar. There may be some that vary a little bit, but it's pretty close to this list. And we could bring that information to a future board, school board if it's broken down that way. I know that on the slide where we list our overall population of our school district at about 19,000, comes off the website that's listed there, the censusreporter.org, and that doesn't necessarily break it down by each individual municipality. I don't know that we would have very exact information. We know our student body and the enrollment that comes from each of those areas, but we may not have exact information on population.
Understood. I was just asking the question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. We will move down to B and invite Ross McPherson to the podium up here. He's going to walk us through the financial report. And some of you have not had a chance to work with Ross as much as we have on the board, but I think you'll find a really enjoyable look back. And Ross does a wonderful job for us of explaining where the money comes from and where it goes.
A little bit of time. All right, Carla, I need your help on some of these. Clicker is not being. Okay, wanted to talk during this annual meeting to talk through our year-end financials for 23-24 and where we're headed for the beginning of the 24-25 budget here in a few weeks. In the general fund, on the first slide here, we have our year-end fund balance list by fund. In the general fund, our fund balance is just over $12 million, $12.041 million. This is just below 25% of our operating budget. And I want to highlight this as we move into our fall months here for the 24-25 budget because we do not anticipate the need to short-term borrow for this budget cycle, which is the first time in recent history that this district has been able to say that, which is going to save not only the district money, but will save interest in the long term as we move forward. The Special Projects Fund, the Special Projects Fund balance represents accounts for donations and student activity accounts and are committed for those purposes. The Debt Service Fund balance represents funds committed for fall debt payments and future debt payments. The Capital Projects Fund is the funds committed for future capital maintenance based on our long-range facility plan, and at this point only includes Fund 46. All referendum expenditures were included at the end of the 22-23 school year. The Food Service Fund represents the funding committed to school nutrition, activities, and programming. And the Community Service Fund represents funding committed for operations and maintenance of our community park spaces. As of June 30, we only have one outstanding debt issue for the 2019 capital maintenance referendum. After all payments made for the 23-24 fiscal year, our outstanding debt as of June 30, 2024 is $45,005,000. Our Employee Benefit Trust Fund, also called Fund 73, is held for future commitment of the school district of Milton to advance and fund our retirement benefit liability to staff. In recent years, the school district has changed to a tier-based retirement system, and the receipts in this funding area for the 23-24 school year reflect advanced funding of those staff that would receive 403B years of service credit for years prior to that change. as required for reporting in Fund 73, we are also highlighting that the Employee Benefit Trust Fund gained $248,306.16 of interest during the year. Moving on to our budget data for 24-25, let's discuss briefly how our budgets are required to be formatted and presented as part of state statutes. Wisconsin uses the Wisconsin Uniform Financial Accounting Requirements, or WUFR, to code and format all financial data in the school district. These guidelines use a chart of accounts that format our local account structure format that we must adhere to. This is used by all Wisconsin public schools. The long-form version of these accounts use set dimensions, including fund, source, object, and function. The publication data used for our annual meeting presentation summarizes these dimensions by fund. Each fund in the WUFR format has specific purpose and set regulations that must be followed during implementation. The district budget is a plan of how we propose to use our resources to accomplish our educational operational planned activities each year. Our budgets represent a plan at a point in time, and we present this data to the board throughout the year. In June, this board gave preliminary approval of the 24-25 budget. The district cannot set a final budget until the end of October, after we learn our state aid certification and we can set our tax levy. This information will require reporting of our third Friday count and final information from the state aid regarding our state aid distribution and our final grant awards. To conduct our annual meeting, we must estimate what these final values will be based on what information we have. These estimates are reflected in our budget and identifies resources or revenues and purposes and uses or expenditures. The next several slides will outline the proposed budgets by fund. This information is also available in the financial supplement prepared for this meeting. At the end of these fund budgets will be a preview of our proposed tax levy by fund. For Fund 10, our general fund. Under revenues, it's important to highlight that most of our revenue sources are coming from our local tax levy and state aid general resources, approximately 39% local and 61% split state aid in the revenue limit. Inter-district resources listed on this slide reflect what we expect to receive as part of students open enrolling into Milton. It's important to note when considering this number that Milton has currently an open enrollment positive benefit to the district in regards to in and out students, but for the money that you see coming in here, there is a corresponding out that is nearly identical. State sources include our general aid payments from the state of Wisconsin and any state grants we may have. Federal sources include federal grants. Noted here is a significant reduction over the last 2 years due to one-time sources and stimulus funds from the federal government for COVID relief funds, also referred to as ESSER funds. Total general fund revenues are set to decrease close to 1% over year-end actuals for 23-24. Here's a graph of our revenues by source in the general fund, identifying that 57% of our general fund is funded by state sources, primarily through state aid, and 34% is funded locally through our local tax levy, and 8% indicated here identifies that open enrollment in payment I mentioned earlier. On the expenditure side, we list our expenditures by function dimension, which is one of the elements of what I mentioned before. The 100,000 series is for all instructional activities, including curricular staff and co-curricular activities. 200,000 support functions include student services staff, library, transportation, custodial, utilities, supervision, business services, and administration. 400,000, also referred to as non-program transactions, include sub-placement activity, inter-fund transfers to other funds, open enrollment outpayments, and private vouchers. On this graph, identifies some of the areas within the operational budget, broken down not just by function, but also by object, indicating that 47% of our general fund goes to salaries and wages, 22% to benefits, 26% to purchase services, including transportation, sub-placement, and many things I mentioned under support services. And for the remainder of the budget, identified as other, I have an exploded graph there to show how that 3% is broken up into small areas of the budget, such as debt service or lease payments, insurance, district insurance, dues and fees, and capital equipment. In the 20 funds, also referred to as special project funds, we have two. Our special revenue trust fund includes our donations and activities for student activity at the high school and middle school, and Fund 27 for our special education program. The special education fund records most of the annual activity for our student services team and budgetary needs. This fund cannot have a fund balance as indicated on this chart, as it requires to be made whole through a transfer from the general fund at the end of each year. On this graph, this identifies that the majority of the special education fund is comprised of salary and benefits, and the remainder for purchase services, again, is for sub-placement and specialized transportation. Our Fund 30 includes our debt service funds. We only have one outstanding debt, as I mentioned earlier. This includes the 2019 capital referendum and the remaining balances. The balances you see here in fund balance, as well as the revenues and expenses, indicate the amount we must levy in the tax each year to perform our annual calendar year payments, and the corresponding expenditures in the fiscal years in which they occur. The activity in recent years where we see some fluctuation in the revenues and expenditures identifies planned prepayment or defeasance in previous years through board action. Our Fund 40 fund, we are actually tying this down to only the capital maintenance fund, Fund 46. In previous years, we had Fund 46 for sinking capital maintenance fund, as well as Fund 49, which record all our referendum activity from the 2019 capital referendum. At this point, the balances shown at the end of 23-24 on this slide indicate the current fund balance at year end and the projected fund balance with our budget for 24-25. Our Fund 50, or food service fund, records all food service activity in the year. And fund balances identified in this fund are restricted to food service programming and will be used over time to invest in new equipment or replacement equipment and offset any projected revenue shortfalls in future years. Fund 80 includes our community services fund. This tracks our transactions of community service activities and includes programming for Milton Recreation, or MREC, Children Park, and Central Park. For all funds, our planned expenditures are up about 2.12% over year-end activity for 23-24. This variance is due mostly to the outperforming anticipated expenditures during the 23-24 school year and hitting our operational revenue targets. For clarification, the expenditure budget for the operation fund year ending 23-24 was about 98.5% of total budget, which is phenomenal. And the revenue target for this year hit 100.5% at year end. For our tax levy, the past 2 years are indicated here for 22-23 and 23-24. Our general fund levy for the upcoming 24-25 school year is anticipated to be reduced under the current revenue limit structure and anticipated aid payments for 24-25. Again, these numbers will not be final until after October 15th. The debt service levy included here does identify planned debt repayment for additional defeasance during this year, combined with last year's additional levy for defeasance. We will be bringing that back to the board this spring for consideration after we set the levy this fall. The community service fund levy is being reduced to 24-25 based on user fees and planning for future use of fund balance. The total levy is anticipated to decrease a total of approximately 2.5% over last year. As mentioned before, the projected mill rate is expected to decline to $6.70. This is based on estimated changes to equalized property values for the school district of Milton. These amounts will not be certified until closer to October 1st, so this number will change before fall approval. The mill rate will be updated with this information before the board acts on the fall budget at the end of October.
Questions from anyone? All right, Ross, you may stay at the podium because we need your guidance too. Letter C here is our budget presentation and hearing. There's a couple slides that will navigate that for us.
So this is just a reiteration of the annual meeting agenda that we've been discussing so far, and now we're moving on to part D, where we're going to be discussing the proposed tax levy, identify the financial presentation, as well as items E and F.
All right, we have a proposed motion in front of us here. Ross has just enumerated those amounts for you by fund. so that folks should have an idea where those funds are intended with our levy. It would be appropriate to put this motion on the floor because this is one of our cursory tasks at the annual meeting.
I'll make a motion that the district levy a tax of $16,312,300 for current operations, $5,448,600 for referendum approved debt, and $350,301 for community services, for a total all-fund tax levy of $22,111,201.
I'll second that.
Thank you. That's Rick's motion, seconded by John, in the amounts he just enumerated there to levy a district tax in those amounts. Anyone with questions on those?
I just wanted to thank Ross for your information, not just tonight, but all year round for you and your team. I know this is a lot of work, and not just leading up to this meeting, but every day of the year. So thanks to you and everyone in the business office. Thank you.
Questions from anyone else? All right, the motion on the floor is to approve a district tax levy in the amounts that Rick indicated in his motion and that appear up on the screens. If there are no further questions, all in favor of approval of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion clearly passes. Thank you, Ross. All righty. Bounce down our agenda here. D, oh no, we did levy school tax, I'm sorry. E is to fix the salaries of the board members and authorize expenses. That motion or suggested motion appears before you also. And as I mentioned, these can come from the floor as well as from the folks to my right and left.
I move to set salaries for board members at $2,000 and the board president at $2,500 per year, and to authorize the payment of actual and necessary expenses incurred by the Board of Education members while traveling in the performance of duties.
I'll second.
So that was Sarah Stuckey's motion, seconded by Tracy Hannah. And you just heard her reiterate what appears on the screen up there. Does anyone have questions? Once again, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That clearly passes. And one more cursory task is to set, or give the board the option to set the date and time of next year's annual meeting.
I move to allow the Board of Education to establish the date and time for the 2025 annual meeting as provided under section 120.08 of the Wisconsin statutes.
I'll second.
that.
Go again.
Rick's motion is seconded by Dave Holterman, as you just heard, to allow the board to establish our date and time for next year's annual meeting. Questions from anyone? And once again, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That clearly passes. And you have been a very attentive and astute audience because we have exhausted my agenda.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Any opposition? We are adjourned. We will take a 10-minute recess, get a drink of water if need be, and then we will. Did we post a time or did it say following? It does say immediately following. Okay. Folks in the audience, you're welcome to join us and stay if you'd like, but we are gonna take a 10-minute recess and we'll aim for about 10 after 7 and we'll do our regular board meeting.
And there's some cookies done.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Stuckey. Yes.